These are the 4 red flags I rank as the most important for first-time home buyers to avoid. Buying a home is a big decision and pretty irreversible, so it's important you're avoiding any red flags in the first place. And most people miss these because they think the red flags are the obvious stuff, like foundation cracks, but that's the thing. If these red flags were obvious, nobody would get burned buying a home. But people get burned every day, and you've seen those horror stories online. And definitely don't expect your realtor or lender to warn you because they get paid when you close. And then half of them haven't even bought in the past 10 years. Some of them have never owned one at all. So they can't really warn you about something that happens after closing if they've never lived it themselves. But I have. Because I'm a mortgage expert and I've bought and sold 15 plus units, I've made some of these mistakes myself. And I've also helped over 500 families avoid them too. So stay with me and I'll walk you through all 4, starting with something that everybody has to pay, and it's property taxes. This is a post-closing red flag surprise that catches almost every first-time buyer off guard. And even if you haven't bought in a while, this will also catch you off guard. So this property tax surprise comes about a year or so, give or take, after you get keys, especially for California and in most states where your property taxes adjust either when your house sells or when the house value goes up. So being in California, I met a home buyer that bought in California about a year ago. So we didn't help him, we helped one of his friends. But anyways, let's call him Joe. So Joe, just for anonymous, obviously his name isn't Joe. Joe came to me and he was like, "What is this? I got this random surprise bill and it looks weird. What is this? And it's a few thousand and it's due in a few weeks." So he had no idea what this was. And he called me asking, "Hey, got your number from my friend. And like, is this a scam? Is this real? Like, do I have to pay for this?" And I was like, "Hey, it's not a scam. It's called the supplemental tax bill." And then his first words to me were the same ones I hear over and over. It's like, "Oh, why didn't my lender or realtor tell me about this?" Let that sink in, right? Because here's what almost no first-time home buyer understands is that property tax bill on the listing that you see on Zillow isn't going to be your property tax bill. In some states, sure, it may be that at closing, but then if your house value goes up next year, then your property tax bill is going to change, right? So in California, it is a little different, but the fundamentals are the same in most states. The taxes are based on the new sales price or the new assessed value, right? So the seller might have bought a house at $200,000 like 10 years ago, right? And now you're buying it for $500,000. So the county is going to tax it like it was a $200,000 house for about a year and be like, "Oh, wait a minute, we have a new billing cycle. I should have been billing you for $500,000, the property taxes. So the difference between the $500,000 and the $200,000 in property taxes is the bill that you get in the mail." And guess what? They do it in the most inopportune times, right? They're going to send it to you right after you owed taxes or right around the holidays when you spent all this money buying gifts and stuff like that, right? So what I'm trying to say is, even if you're not in California, the same thing happens in Texas, other states as well. If the house was worth like $250,000 and you bought it at $300,000, right? Your property taxes are going to change, right? So you want to make sure you account for that. So what you don't want to do is have 2 surprises the same year. And again, nobody warns you about this, right? So your realtor doesn't bring this up because, one, they don't want to talk you out of a deal, or they just don't even know because they might have not even bought before. Same with your lender, right? The lender, if they're not experienced in the state that you're buying in, right? They might just use the seller's tax bill on your monthly payment estimate because, that's what's on file. And then you get to closing, think your payment is one number, and then year after, the number jumps up completely. And on top of that, once your payment adjusts, your monthly payment goes up, right? Then the one that you signed for. So it's important that, one, your lender communicates this, like, "Hey, this is the seller's property taxes. This is what we're going to calculate, or this is what it should be. So I'm going to prepare you for this, not this lower number," right? We don't want to do a bait and switch, okay? So this is also the worst part, is it's technically not their fault legally. Like, they're not required to really warn you, right? So they don't. So don't use the seller's old tax bill and don't let it fool you into a payment that you can't afford a year from now. So any of you watching this who watched this before and had a property tax surprise, comment down below. Say, "Hey, my mortgage guy didn't warn me. My mortgage gal didn't warn me," right? Just let me know because it's actually more common than you think. All right, so let's try to avoid those surprises as much as possible. And how to do that is through preparation and getting ready. The reason why I made this is because I wish this is something that I had when I bought my first house. right? And again, if you're not ready, I give you customized videos to get ready. So at the very end, you can watch like specific videos for a specific constraint. Again, it takes less than 30 seconds. It's my gift to you. Check it out in the link down below. So property taxes can catch you off guard, but this next red flag is the one that sneaks up on you. It's like 1,000 paper cuts. Red flag number 2 is a long-term ownership mistake that drains buyers slowly for the entire life of owning the home, and it's maintenance. And we've seen all those posts on social media, right? Check this out. You know, home ownership is fun. You've seen it all. The water heater dies, the AC quits on you during the summer, and the roof leaks in that one room that you didn't expect. And of course, you have all your furniture there. And then the fence falls down in a storm. And it's funny to watch online. I still laugh at it, right? Because it reminds me of my first house until it's you, until you have to do the repairs. So let me tell you what happened to me. When I bought my first home in Florida, I was just out of college and I put literally all my savings into the down payment. And that's why I always advise my home buyers is please have some money left over after you buy, right? Even though it feels good to have your payment be like $20 less, you're gonna put 20 grand into the property, right? So this house was in Florida and it was mid-August. If you guys know anything about Florida, summer, no bueno, right? That's about a week after closing, my AC broke. And my real estate agent didn't warn me about what's called a home warranty because, didn't talk about it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Now that I'm in the industry, I'm like, definitely should have got that. One. Second one is when I bought the house, I was sweating through my shirt and it hit me like, again, there's nobody to call. There's no landlord. I was the landlord. And there's no maintenance number to text or, message or whatever. So it's just me, my broken AC unit. It's like, where is it? It's right there. Right there. I'll pull up a picture photo right over here. This little thing right here. And a quote, right? And it was like, I think like $3,000 to $5,000, something like that. I do remember it was quite a bit. And it was a lot of money back then, and it's still a lot of money today. So that's when I realized something. Nobody tells you, especially first-time buyers, is the day that you get the keys that you're the landlord now. It's like a mental shift, right? And it costs you real money, but you do get the upside. If the house goes up, you do get the upside, right? So now let's talk about rules of thumbs. I generally recommend 1% to 3% of the home value. So every year for maintenance and repairs, right? Now, the key thing is the exact number depends on the price of the home, how old it is, what condition is it in? Is it a new build? You might be on the lower end. And if it's older, definitely on the higher end, or just be mindful of that, right? So on a $500,000 house, that's gonna be $5,000 a year. And then 3% is $15,000 a year, or it could be something in between, things like that. Now, don't beat yourself up, right? Where if you're like, hey, I did your mistake, Nathan. I put all my money into the house because I'm watching your YouTube videos after I bought a house. 1, subscribe. 2 is that $5,000, for example, or the 1%. It's okay if you don't have it the first year, but at least start progressing to it. My big saying is progress over perfection, okay? Progress over perfection. If you can't get it here, make some progress towards it, right? That's the goal. So by not accounting for the paper cuts, which is maintenance, that's how first-time homebuyers end up being house poor. Not because they bought a bad house, but because nobody told them that owning a house actually costs a little bit more than they thought. So here's the fix. Before you buy, build the maintenance number into your real budget, right? Use the 1 to 3%. And then again, depending on the age of the house, condition, etc. So that's the dollar amount you should be saving every single month into a separate account. Bonus points if you take this money and then you put it into, a high yield savings account. I'm gonna put it over here. HYSA, high yield savings account. And that way you're actually making some interest in it, right? If you wanna go super aggressive, you can put it in the S&P 500, but sometimes the S&P 500 goes down. So just be mindful of that. So if your budget can't handle the mortgage and the maintenance reserve that we talked about, I believe the house is too expensive, full stop, period, right? So don't learn this way, the way I did, which is sweating in Florida during the summer with a broken AC that I didn't budget for. If you want to do that, that's fun, but at least I warned you, right? Because again, you're the landlord now. So don't be the next home ownership is fun TikTok post. So we want to be mindful of maintenance. But if you make this next mistake and you forget about maintenance, that's a double no-no. So red flag number 3 is the hidden cost of buying a cheaper home further from your job. And it looks great on paper, but this one sneaks up on you. So let me start with an analogy because I know we've all done this before at some point. In the age of Spirit Airlines shutting down, I thought this is actually applicable. So buying a cheaper house further out is like buying a flight that's $200 cheaper, but you didn't know it had 3 layovers, right? So on paper, you have technically saved money, technically. And guess what? You get hungry, so then you got to spend more money in the airport, and then you arrive exhausted, and you swore you'd never do it again. You swore you would never be in the airport that long and then spend $80 for a water bottle, right? So here's what nobody calculates when they pick the cheaper house further out. Because generally speaking, if you're further out from the city, it might be a little cheaper, right? So the real cost isn't just the mortgage difference, it's everything that comes with the commute. So starting with gas, and we all know gas prices went up just due to something that's happening in the world, right? As you can see on the screen, I'm gonna throw it up here, is in January, the national average or beginning of the year was like $2.80, right? So when I was doing this and I was pulling it up, I was like, yeah, my gas bill has definitely gone up, or my filling up the car. And then I was looking at this and I'm like, whoa, it's $4.40 today? That's a 60% increase in 4 months, right? So if you're driving 60 miles a day to and from work, that's an extra $80 a month in gas just from the price increase. And again, that's just happened overnight, right? So then there's the wear and tear on your vehicle. So most people put 20,000 extra miles on their vehicle if they live much further away, which means a car that should last 10 years now might last 6. And you know that saying, they don't build them like they used to, right? Because people are cutting corners to drive profit up for cars, right? So that's another point. And the time too. This is a very sneaky one. When I did the study, my wife, her father drove quite a bit when he was working, or still working. But I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So an extra 30 minutes each way is 250 hours a year. That's 6 full work weeks of your life in the car every year, but in the seat. Let that sink in. So here's a fun exercise. That way we can go through this like thought experiment, right? So I want you to go back in time to 2016, so 10 years ago, which is crazy to think it was 10 years ago. Do you remember that one thing you spent $100 a month on? Probably not. But you probably remember, maybe it was that concert that you went to with your friends, or maybe that trip you went with the family or friends. That's something I remember. And it's so weird. We only remember the moments of 2016. Like if I were to say, summarize 2016, you couldn't summarize all 360 days. You couldn't summarize the $100 a month that you spent, but you could summarize in bullet points of the moments. Now let's fast forward 10 years from now. You're not going to remember the $100 a month you saved on the mortgage. I promise you that. But you remember that one Friendsgiving you had, that July 4th party, the sports game that you went to with the kids, and maybe the Olympics in 2028. So here's the fix. The answer isn't always the cheaper house further away. It may be, but it's not always. I want you to crunch the numbers, right? So sometimes the answer is waiting. Wait an extra year. Save up more. Buy the house that's closer to your job if you can, once you saved up more, right? And even if the payment is $100 more, because that $100 buys you your evenings, buys back your weekends, the life you actually wanted when you decided to buy a house in the first place, right? You didn't want to pay your landlord's mortgage. So here's what I want you to do. Yes, let's calculate the dollars, right? Okay, cool. I'm technically saving $100 a month, but you want to factor in all the other variables as well. Time, gas, wear and tear. Then I also want you to calculate the life that doesn't live on paper. So the numbers and the life that doesn't live on paper. Once you account for both, then you'll have a full formula. What home buyers make a mistake in is they only account for one part of the formula. So like I said, we want to be mindful of the total cost, okay? So this next one, if you make this next mistake and not account for the total cost, that might be a double no-no. So red flag number 4 hits before you even start house hunting. Trusting your maximum approval amount as your budget. So I had this client last year and that I met through a past client. They referred me, right? So they talked to a few lenders before. And usually when I hear this, I ask some questions just to make sure, the work that was done before was done correctly, and per guidelines, right? The analogy I like to give is like when you hire a general contractor, the general contractor is not going to just, okay, I'm going to start building. It's like, whoa, let's double check all the work, right? I want to make sure the beam that was installed correctly. So that's the way I would think about it. So I asked them this one question. So, okay, cool. So when you got pre-approved, I'm assuming, they reviewed your pay stubs, your income, maybe your tax returns or W-2s, depending on how you're paid. Does that sound about right? And they said, oh no, we just filled some stuff online and then we got this number out and we're like golden. I was like, oh, so you didn't submit any documentation? I was like, okay, that's a little interesting. So that's more of a pre-qualification, right? So pre-qualification, just in case you didn't know, is when you state what you make, and then they spit out an automated number, right? Or a number on a piece of paper pretty quickly. A pre-approval is like a legitimate, I reviewed your documents, cross-referenced the mortgage questionnaire and what was uploaded to make sure everything was accurate. Like you had a human being intervene to double check, right, with guidelines. So long story short, we're like, okay, cool. I gotta ask you this next question. So, hey, so you mentioned you were pre-approved for $700,000. Is that your comfortable pre-approval? And they're like, what is that? And then I was like, oh, okay, hold on. So your comfortable pre-approval, in my opinion, should not be your maximum pre-approval, which is basically what the bank pre-approves you for. And that's usually a higher number, generally speaking, right? So they're like, oh yeah, well, the previous, lenders that I chatted with, they didn't really go over any numbers. So that's also like a sub red flag. If they don't go over any numbers with you, go over closing costs, what to expect, what are the strategies, why they recommend these options, huge red flag. Then they're just treating you like a drive-through, right? Don't be treated like a drive-through. You deserve better. So they just gave him a rate and gave me a letter, and they literally didn't go over anything. They're like, hey, go figure it out, right? I was like, oh man, we got to start from scratch here. So anyways, the reason why I bring this up is please know that the lender will pre-approve you for your maximum qualification. So however that number is, it does not equal what you will be comfortable with, okay? So let me say that again. Your maximum qualification does not equal what you will be comfortable with. It's usually lower. So in my opinion, you should receive 2 pre-approvals, your maximum and your comfortable. If you're not getting that, then they're just trying to sell you on the highest mortgage possible, right? Don't do that, please. So like I said, the bank doesn't care that you're planning for a kid. They don't know that your commute's gonna change. And they don't factor in the $15,000 in repairs the house needs in year 1 or whatever for that specific house. And your realtor, they see the top of your budget. Hey, you're pre-approved for $700,000, even though you should be looking at $400,000. Their eyes light up. It's like, cool, I'm just gonna show them $700,000 and let's go. Because their commission scales with the price of the house, right? So here's what I would do to fix this is, I call it the life first framework, because before you even look at houses, I want you, or even talk to a bank, will approve you for, I want you to ask yourself this question is, where do I see myself in 36 months for your job, family, and health? Okay. Then ask, what's that going to cost me for your job? As an example, it might be a promotion. Okay, so it's not going to cost me anything. I'm going to get more money. You might grow your family. Guess what? We're having your first baby soon too on my end, right? And the babies aren't free. I just learned, apparently you go through diapers like crazy. And yeah, that costs money. That's an expense, right? For health. So this is physical and mental health. Like what vacations do I want to go on or experiences I want to pay for and enjoy? Now you got that figured out, like what are the big pillars of expenses or cost, right? Then you can reverse engineer how much you can spend. And most people don't even do that exercise because 1, they don't have an advisor actually like guiding them through that. 1, the other thing is like the advisors in their table probably haven't done this recently, right? If you've bought 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you're not gonna remember. So anyways, as a side note, I also like just kind of like as a number here, I see most buyers are around, like if your maximum is like, you're comfortable is like 20 to 30% below your maximum. So kind of use that as a rule of thumb to kind of get in the ballpark. But again, your numbers are gonna be different because everyone's situation is specific. So yes, this does mean it's a smaller house. It also means you actually get to live in a home you actually enjoy living in. All right, so those are the 4 major red flags. Some happen after closing, during, and before. So the fact that you know these, you're well ahead of most home buyers and you're getting more prepared, which is amazing. So what I always like to do is make the best mortgage education videos in the mortgage space. So if you liked it, give it a like, subscribe, and maybe comment if you made these mistakes before, or if you learned anything, so that way you can help somebody else. With that being said, YouTube is also recommending this video right over here. Give it a click. I think you'll enjoy it if you like this one, and I'll catch you in the next one.